Morning Drive, brought to you by Golf Pride.
And welcome into this Sunday edition of Morning Drive. Gary Williams, always great to be with my partners, Matt Adams and Jaime Diaz. And guys, we've spent a lot of days talking about scheduling and reshuffling. Well, there was another reshuffling that was made official in the past week. And one of the things that is unchanged is a date in September, and that is the Ryder Cup. And if you look at that date, it's remained unchanged. That will be the 3 days at the end of the month scheduled for the Ryder Cup to be held at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. Now, a man who is not currently qualified on points for the European team is the reigning champion golfer of the year, Shane Lowry, who's going to hold on to that claret jug into next year because of the cancellation of the Open Championship this year. Well, he was asked his thoughts on the qualification process and if they should be altered given the current state of the world right now.
Personally, I don't think I'm in the situation. I'm not going to sit here and say the qualification process should be altered because, who knows what they're thinking. I think I'd be very happy if the Ryder Cup went ahead. Obviously, I really want to be on that team. So, look, that's just up to me when we do get back playing, hopefully at Colonial in June, that I can get back out there and hit the ground running and play some good golf and work towards that team. There's probably going to have to be some hard decisions made with the qualifying process, and some people are not going to be happy. But look, I'm just going to do everything to the best of my ability to make that team, and if I do, great. Hopefully, I can go to Whistling Straits and help Europe win the trophy. And that's all I can say. Really, it's up to the people behind the scenes to make those decisions, and it's up to me to go and play some good golf.
Well, you can see the balance of Shane's interview on Monday's edition of Golf Central. And Matt, let me start with you because I know you had a chance earlier this week to speak to the captain of that European team, Padraig Harrington. What did he say about the current state, which has been frozen, of that European side?
Well, it was interesting because a couple of weeks ago in this forum, Gary, you had expressed an opinion saying that you didn't think that a Ryder Cup should be held if there could not be fans there, right? Because they're so integral to the entire event. So I asked him about that, and he said, quoting, because you can't paraphrase Padraig Harrington, you have to read the quote. He said, quote, "It might not have been clear at the start, but it's clear now the Ryder Cup will not go ahead without spectators. There has to be freedom of movement for spectators and players. It has everything to do with the virus, obviously, but governments, the Ryder Cup committee, and probably nothing to do with me as captain." So the captain of the European Ryder Cup team absolutely agrees with you that without the spectators there and that critically important element, it shouldn't be held.
Matt, let me follow, and I'm not surprised that he said that. I think a lot of people would agree with that position. They have two lists. They have the European points list, they have the world points list. When he looks at the current construction of that, what does he see?
Well, if you look on the European points, right now it would be Tommy Fleetwood, Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, and Victor Perez. On the world points, where they get their other points from, and their points started to accumulate back in September of 2019, it'd be Terrell Hatton, Danny Willett, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Lee Westwood, and Bernd Wiesberger. Remember, on the European side, they currently have 3 picks instead of 4. And to that, I asked him about, what do you think about this combination names? And he said, there's no one close to qualifying that I'm displeased with. No fluke, quote, end quote. So Padraig Harrington right now is pretty happy with the assortment of his team because remember, he still would have 3 captain's picks. So if you're looking for a Sergio Garcia, maybe if he feels like he has form, or Henrik Stenson or Justin Rose or whoever you're going after that's not currently on that list, he does have some latitude there in completing his team currently.
Jaime, off of that, we're talking about the likely reconstruction of the selection process for both sides. What alterations do you think should be made and likely will be made by the PGA of America and the European Tour when it comes to how they're going to construct these teams?
Well, I'm not sure it's necessary. If you look at the current list, it's actually quite representative of who've been the best players. Sergio and Justin Rose, obviously, they're experienced guys. Stenson as well. You'd want them on the team, but there's room to pick them. On the other hand, Gary, I think everything's irregular this year, and there hasn't been the type of run up that guys could strategize about how to make the team, and they got caught out in terms of where they stand right now because they just hadn't played enough. So I could see a 6-6 situation where you have 6 qualifiers and 6 picks. Maybe the European team needs a little bit more because they're going to have less playing coming forward. And actually going forward, I don't mind the whole concept of 12 picks. I know that's considered absurd by some people, but to me, if you want the captain to truly be vital and to actually pick the players that he feels would actually meld together better, not just who's played the best, I think a Ryder Cup with 12 picks would be quite interesting. And I'm not saying this is the year to do it, but if it got to that point where both teams felt like, geez, we don't really have who we want, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see it sort of lean that way as opposed to just a strict follow the traditional structure that's always been followed.
Ryan Lavner at golfchannel.com, a senior writer, wrote that exact position about a month ago regarding the full autonomy of the captains to construct their teams with the 12 picks. I do think, Matt, that the diminishing returns of empirical data that these captains rely on for the automatic qualifications should present them with more latitude for making the selections of their teams, whether it be an additional pick or make it half and half. Do you agree with that?
I'm not as worried about it. I'm more along the lines of what Jaime initially said. If you look at the way the system's working right now, for Team USA, remember the Ryder Cups and World Golf Championships and the players still counted in 2019. Ironically, the one major that would count in 2020 if the structure stayed as it currently is would only be the PGA Championship, which I happen to think the PGA of America would absolutely love. But the current configuration of Team USA, Brooks, DJ, Patrick Reed, Gary Woodland, Xander Schauffele, Webb Simpson, Justin Thomas, Tiger Woods, and then the next 4 in the points being Finau, Cooch, Bryson, and Cantlay is really not a bad assortment when you look at Team USA. The current point system is actually working on both sides. I don't agree at all with going to a radical approach and having the captains pick all 12 players, because you've got a system right now in points that are representative of players that have played well over the 2-year qualifying period that exists right now. Even though we've had this snap in the middle of it and this huge break in the middle of it, I think we have time for players to work their way onto the team if they play extremely well. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the way it's settling out right now. What do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, they've got to push back the deadline for qualification. Both sides have to do that. Jaime, I think you would agree with that. And if so, what should the deadline be? Because right now the United States has it, would it be subsequently after what was supposed to be the original date for the BMW Championship on August 23rd? What date should it be?
I don't have an exact date, but I'd push it as far as possible towards the Ryder Cup. I don't know how much time is needed, really. I could see it within 10 days of the actual Ryder Cup. I don't see a problem. I think everybody be ready to play and could make the changes. Obviously, some gut-wrenching decisions, and the guys who got passed over, it would hurt, especially if they'd been on the team prior to that at the old deadline. But I think at this point, everything has to be condensed and kind of an emergency kind of situation where we're trying to get the best event possible in the shortest time allowed to us.
So, Jaime, do you and Gary think that we
Matt,
might be able to get it pushed out to the – I was just going to say, you think we might be able to get it pushed out to the U.S. Open? Because you know what they say, it comes down to making sure you have the uniforms made and all that. That's all right. Make uniforms for people that are close. And then let it go to that Sunday night. That would be exciting.
Wow, that might be a little too tight.
There are plenty of haberdashers that can fit players to know what their measurements are if they've got to, fill out uniforms, with 72 hours before they play golf on that Friday. I would say that, look, at bare minimum, you've got to push the deadline beyond at least to that Sunday evening of the Tour Championship, which is now that first Sunday, I think it's September 7th, and that's 2 weeks out of essentially the back end of the U.S. Open. I know that several years ago, guys, when they instituted that like last pick, there was kind of like the Horschel dynamic. Would you save one selection after the U.S. Open? Because hypothetically, Jaime, if a European or an American wins the U.S. Open and they have closed the door on qualifications and the selections of the captain's picks, the U.S. Open champion, the second major of the year, 5 days before the championship, is going to be on neither side?
I agree with you, Gary. I mean, I do think that extra weight should be given to the U.S. Open. And in this year, it would bring more significance and make it seem like an even, more epic win because it would earn a spot on the Ryder Cup. And that's always been traditionally, the PGA champion always got automatically into the Ryder Cup. Not to say it's apples to apples, but the idea that, the player who arguably won the hardest tournament in the world and wasn't qualified and now doesn't get to get on the Ryder Cup doesn't seem quite fair. I think that would be a cool thing, at least one more pick for each team, and or at least the U.S. Open winner gets on the Ryder Cup one way or the other.
Well, we are just getting started on this Sunday here on Morning Drive, and we encourage you to follow us on all our social media handles, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. Please subscribe to the Golf Channel YouTube channel as well. We've got more to discuss, including a guy who's getting ready to turn 50 and the newest minted member of the World Golf Hall of Fame for the class of 2021. Morning Drive is back after this.